Hello, welcome back to the God Podcast. Yeah, so you need to talk.
Blood died.
No, it didn't.
Hello.
Fuck you. I just started recording to do an audio test. Fuck you. We just...
The bright side is that it didn't happen during the record. Well, it happened during that recording.
The bright side is the background noise had actually disappeared.
Is that the problem? Is that when I talk, it's like...
There was before the controller disconnected.
All right.
I think we're in the bag. I don't think I should even stop the recording.
All right, let's do that then. Welcome to.
Okay, no, we need a bit more enthusiasm for the new year. I mean, come on. Come on.
Halfway to the end, baby. Let's go.
To the end.
I mean, like
2050 is that year, though, isn't it? And
everything. Yeah, it was like everything that could kill us is apparently going to kill us in 2050. That was like every fucking scientific document.
I think those were all good causes and reasonable things to bring up, but I think the year 2050 was chosen as a marketing ploy because it sounds like the juiciest end time.
Well, you know what I think
that we'll all live to, that people would live to as well. Like
we're in 2025, and I'm not seeing any women having sex with men robots. That's all. That's what I think.
We're also in 2025, and I'm not seeing any women having sex with me. So there's also that problem.
Yeah. So I think scientists are goddamn liars.
Apparently, the article was actually like by 2025, women will be having more sex with robots or something, and it's actually like a Mandela effect. And you know what?
Probably clickbait tile.
You know what? I think it's true, and I'm going to say something here that I don't need to bring up. We don't need to be on this topic. We gain nothing from this. In fact, we only run the risk of losing by delving into this topic because it's both quite taboo, potentially misogynistic, and irrelevant to our channel. But I reckon
that's the trifecta.
I reckon that women will be having more sex with robots than men eventually, because the only men who would are absolute gooners. And now I don't actually have the numbers on this. But I think most people will agree that women use sex toys infinitely more than men, but just not necessarily at like a really depraved level.
You got to be down bad to buy a pocket pussy.
Exactly,
right?
But no one's going to judge a woman for owning any of the low level things that they might have.
Yeah.
And I think a robot, once the robots are normalized, basically. You see what I'm saying? I don't think I'm wrong. If we have any female listeners, I know we don't. Please tell us if we're right or not.
Those stats.
That should be one of our New Year's resolutions. Get some female listeners or viewers, and don't take advantage of them.
I think that's an impossible YouTuber goal to not use underage female subscribers.
I definitely should have actually stopped the recording, shouldn't I?
Almost definitely.
Anyway, do you know David? You know David Dobrik is, right?
Yeah.
He's like back or something, and he's like jacked, but he's one of those people who you can tell is not supposed to be jacked.
I mean, yeah, he had a pussy ass face anyway. Before.
He looks like one of those roach aliens from Men in Black.
It's not very nice.
No, it's not. Anyway, welcome to the first episode of the podcast of 2025. The first of not many, because if we keep up the same rate, the sort of somewhat new every third week, that will result in the least number of episodes of any year so far. Do you remember we used to do this every week?
Yeah, that was back when there was actually stuff to talk about every week.
Well,
now,
see,
we're stretching it by talking about it at all this year.
Yeah, so you've seen the title, and you can see the banner, and I'm definitely sort of, if I were to hold unflinchingly to exactly what the banner says, the bit of text below us, we wouldn't get very far because it says 2025 DRG Wishlist. But obviously it's time. I think it's time to. Obviously, this was always this was official ever since Roadcore was announced. But when we say DRG or if we don't specify either one, this is. I hope that people understand that. Especially, it'll become much more clear when the game's out. But we are absolutely a Deep Rock and Roadcore channel. We're a Ghost Ship developed games channel, and that's kind of been in the air for a while. But I think with what this year is going to look like, that needs to be sort of very cemented, because it's all we've got, and it being all we've got means that we don't have much until the end of the year, really, to go on, and that's why this is going to be a little bit different to the last couple of times we did this. I imagine it's still going to be a bit more positive than the 2023 one. Don't watch that video; it's utterly depressing. But it's still going to be a bit different because obviously we're looking at a year that is not intended to be full of things, really, is it? There's a very specific sort of layout for what Ghost Ship are up to. That's going to create quite a different vibe. So we need to take a bit of a different approach. And I think the first bit of that approach is going to be sort of staking my claim on something a bit ambitious here, which is, I reckon, come next year, this time next year, it's going to be the best Wishlist video we've ever done. It's going to be, I reckon. I mean, that's my first wish, is that 2026 is going to be popping off.
It's going to be a lot better next year than this year.
Think about it. Yeah. Think about it. Roadcore will be out. And we know we're getting 2020. Well, we know we're getting 2026. We know we're getting season 6 next year. That's going to be a jam pack. Because when it comes to things that we actually want out of this year, it's either going to be very small things for Deep Rock, and that may be on my side, or just things about how we want Roadcore to go down, like as a release. That's really what it's going to come down to. But next year, ideally, will genuinely be the most packed there is. And maybe not in actual numbers, maybe it will be maybe only 2 or 3 major Roadcore updates and season 6, something like that. But it's still gonna be a wild contrast, though. You'd imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way it wouldn't be, right? No way, unless it gets delayed. Yeah. But that's not going to happen, is it?
If it was going to happen, I think we'd know about it already, right? They delayed the early access, right? Which it's sad face emoji for that, but they still seem to have an overall confidence in the game itself coming out at the time they agreed.
Yeah,
which I guess it's kind of because it's the state that has to be in isn't inherently decided, right?
No,
I
think we'll separate those two things because I think it's actually fair. There were a couple of sort of topics I wanted to, sort of New Year's-esque topics I wanted to utilize, but I think we could maybe put our first item on the list. Roadcore comes out. That's the first thing we want.
Yep.
And that sounds crazy, right? That sounds crazy, and it is crazy because I don't think there's any reason to expect things to go badly. But I think it's still fair because it's kind of what the entire year rides on, basically.
Yep.
So I don't think that's actually unreasonable to at least put out into the ether, is be like, let's just hope it comes out. I think what we'll do a bit later in the episode is talk about how we want, the kind of state. I think that's actually probably the most substantial thing we can talk about as far as how we want things to go, is what Roadcore looks like on launch, really. So we'll save that for a bit later. But yeah, it coming out is wish number 1. I imagine this wish will probably be granted fairly easily, because as far as we know, everything's going well. But it was delayed before, and that's the only reason that we have to expect any kind of shocks to the system. But at the same time, I will say there is an element, obviously, given the fact that it's going to come out in November, right? There is an element of kind of writing the year off already, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In that way. So I do have to ask then, sort of, I guess to both of us really, is how bad it would actually be in light of that statement of having written the year off already, and obviously that would entirely depend on if it did get delayed. When to. Do you think, right? And I'm only gonna give this option. I'm not gonna entertain the idea of it being later than this. Let's say quarter 1, 2026. What would that do to your psyche?
I think Ghost Ship has obviously a significantly more unlimited supply of good faith than most other games, but you can't deny that it has gone down significantly in the recent years, right? That a lot of the Ghost Ship being the gods of gaming that they were has been called into question. Maybe they are but mere mortals, and I think because that would be.
I think they're like Talos, really, though, aren't they? Think about it. I don't think because I think gods end up being corrupt, and I'm not too big a fan of that. But Talos is a man who ascended to godhood through heroic deeds,
But it's that would be the third time, right? That they had been delayed. I mean, technically, not the actual release wouldn't be the third time, but more the third delay involved in Road Core, and it just isn't good, right? I don't think anyone thinks it would be, and it just puts it off to a very bad start. Generally,
yeah. There's also the element of there actually wouldn't be any reason to there wouldn't be any way that it would get delayed just to then as well if it did, because they wouldn't actually be they basically wouldn't be working. It's just like, oh, it got delayed from November to February. Well, how? How is it going to come out in February if it can't come out this year? That wouldn't make sense. And I guess that is actually another. Let's get the pessimistic ones out of the way. Another wish would be no more misfires, if you like.
Yeah.
And obviously that's hard though. That's hard. That's that's literally a coin flip. I think there's 2 coin flips I think for that, and that comes down to Road Core's release and the alpha. Those are the 2 coin, because they're the only 2 ways. They're the only 2 areas where a misfire could happen. But they're also the only 2 areas where success can be garnered as well. So it's really eyes on 2 very particular periods of the year. But fewer chances to fail is not well. It's not more chances of success, is it? But it's also like it is fewer chances to fail. There's no way like that. As long as Road Core comes out, there's no way that isn't like a positive. And there's the only way Road Core coming out on time is like not received well is if it's broken. I think, like genuinely, I think it's going to be very difficult for it to be disappointing content wise. I can't actually imagine that. I think the only way is if it's like scarily broken, technically speaking.
Yeah, I mean,
so let's avoid that. And obviously they have the alpha to really. I think genuinely, I think the technical side of things is going to be like the hardest thing for them to justify slipping on, in my opinion, when it comes to Road Core's launch, because it was by far the thing that played Deep Rock the most up until it went 1.0. And I think Road Core does need to be in a better state, early access wise, than Deep Rock was. Really, it kind of just does. Because there were some really bad technical issues towards the beginning that need to be avoided.
it was arguably unplayable.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it would demoralize the shit out of us when we would spend like an hour in a mission just for it to crash at the very end.
Yeah.
Because
we pushed through on just sheer love for Dwarven Brotherhood and hole digging.
Yeah.
But I think when you are an adult, it takes a bit more than that. And the game needs to be playable. There you go. There's another one. The game launch is playable, and that also extends to the idea of Does it need to be? What are like the warning signs, I guess, when it comes to the alpha? I think the alpha though is something we need to talk about in sort of its own section about how we want that to go down as well. So there'll sort of be some of the two major sections. So I think what we'd rather get into is New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
Should be pretty easy. First of all, our New Year's resolution, not in our personal lives.
Of course, that's private.
We can't discuss those. They're inappropriate. We can't discuss.
Yeah.
I mean for the channel actually, and mine's pretty easy. Let's finish this fucking video. Or rather, get it out before any of the season 5 overclocks are changed, because I know that Anders is trying to do something, and I want to put emphasis on trying. And I know that I think Anders and Mike have a bunch of ideas for those overclocks specifically, and I'll save that also for the very end. I do want to do a quick piece on Deep Rock, but I know that Anders wants to do something to the burst fire overclock, and the reason why he's in the state of wanting to do it rather than being able to is because he needs a programmer to do what he's trying to do, and he can't like tear anyone away from Road Core, so he's kind of just stuck. Well, he's not stuck. He's working on Road Core, but he's got this thing that he wants to do to burst fire. And I've got a theory that what I'm going to suggest one of the things I'm going to suggest in this video is actually might be what he's trying to do, because it is interesting that he needs a programmer to make this change, whatever he's thinking about. And I'm not going to spoil that either way. I'm not going to spoil it because I don't want to spoil the video, and I don't want to potentially spoil an upcoming change. But on topic of that video, you wouldn't have noticed it yet, although I think I did technically say this week videos would start on both sort of days, right? You will notice that there wasn't an Overclock showcase this week, and you will hopefully notice more so that there won't be one next week either. And I'm not promising that there'll be a video the following week. The one after that, though, I'm pretty confident. In fact, I'm actually fairly confident about the next one, to be honest. That I will get out a proper video, basically, is what I've been working on.
Proper?
Yeah, proper. And I mean proper, by the way. I mean proper. Actually, the only thing that's really stopping it from being fully kosher is I still don't think I'm going to script it, because I don't think that works. I am going to make notes, definitely, in sort of that way that will help me, but it's not going to be a scripted video. But it will be very intentionally structured and very, heavily edited in comparison to what we normally do. I don't know if I would use the term heavily edited. It's not going to be like a Chris Reagan video, but it will be noticeable, because I'm working on a video where I'm going to basically just do Ghost Ship's job for them and take a stab at just rebalancing all of the season 5 overclocks. Not literally. It's going to be all in the form of a presentation, and that is still literally a PowerPoint. So there you go. There's the improper aspect. The fact that we're still not real YouTubers, still using PowerPoint, but it's gotten us by. It's got
forward.
And it's going really well. And I've had lots of ideas from people as well. I've sourced from Reddit and YouTube, even though one of those things might have gotten me permanently banned. I don't think it was that, by the way. I don't think it was posting to. I don't know though, because I remember the last 2 times I shared videos to the Reddit, I got flagged for spam. So I don't know. It might have been the fact that I read my head at all, and someone was just like, "Guys, can we kill this guy? Can
we ban this guy?"
Yeah, it was literally like I'm not going to name any of them, but I guess it was one of the Reddit mods was just like, barrel. I can't stand him. And then they just killed me. Or rather, Dankshine, I guess, is actually the username. But yeah, so that video will happen, and I think obviously that's a pretty shallow. Would you call that a shallow resolution? I mean, it's not something I've done before. It's not.
Hello, you need to be more. You need to donate to charity. I think that's the only.
I did donate
That's
to
the only way
charity.
to not be challenged.
I've donated to charity. I donated
What?
$4.20 to SNIS's Gold for Gaza live stream.
Wow.
Yeah, and
So
I
you
remember
funded a war crime.
I remember it was like, I don't know what time it was for him at the time, but it was quite late for us anyway. And I was in the chat as Barrel Vision, and he was just like, Barrel Vision, then you guys made videos. He was like so fucking zonked.
And he had to just stop that, didn't he?
He did actually have to stop. I don't know if it was a tiredness or some kind of other mental burden. Oh, well, he was definitely tired, but he was like, he had to like cancel one of them the following day. And I could tell because it was something a bit beyond just tiredness. To be honest, I could tell that much. But he still appreciated my donation. I think. So I've donated to charity. Have you donated to charity recently? I don't think so. No.
Fuck charities.
Yeah. It's actually kind of hard to disagree with that because I don't know if I trust them very much.
I don't. And even if I did, I wouldn't care.
Okay, that's not very cheerful. I feel like your resolution shouldn't be too difficult either, should it? To drum up. Yes.
I actually what play the game? Is that what you're saying?
No, definitely not. Well, for the channel.
You want your drawing streams back, didn't you?
Well, I thought you did. I thought you definitely did.
I do as well. Well,
yeah.
Once I can. In fact, it probably if I get a better PC, I can get better everything really. And it won't be too long. As soon as I can maintain the money that I would need to buy a PC with.
Yeah.
Then I get a better one that runs smoother, so the streams can eventually be better.
If anyone's looking for a good cause to donate to,
don't do that. Yeah, I'll be fine. It'll just take probably a couple months. I'll have enough money. Hell, I mean, it depends how much a PC costs. Because according to Tom, they're not that expensive. You can get a really good one for quite cheap. I know a guy, and then he fucks off for like 2 weeks. So, depending, seeing how that goes, I could.
I know a guy, but he also eats crack, and the computer might be full of beans.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind a bean computer, to be honest with you, though.
Have you seen the video of the guy who fills his computer with beans and he gets the guy around to fix it?
I think so, yeah.
And then he opens the computer and then he's just dumbfounded and he just says, This is beans. And it's like, oh, and then the guy who's like recording is like, oh, what the hell? What the fuck? How'd they get there? Oh no. Now, I don't think either of us would ever have the gall to pull some kind of tomfoolery like that. But if you were to do something like that, what would it be?
What would I feel for the beans?
Well, it could be what you feel for the beans, or what you would feel with anything, really. And then call a man round to like fix it and just completely.
It'll be a microwave. Because our microwave isn't great anyway. It doesn't have a handle. We have to kind of force it open by jamming our fingers between the small crack, to open it. So I probably while it's when it dies, I think I'll fill it full of beans and then call a guy.
Yeah, I would do something in the microwave as well, except I would just solder a steel plate into the gap so that he opens it and it's just a solid wall in front of him.
just full of a perfect
actually no. Why don't I paint it to look like the inside of the microwave? So I can't get anything in there. I can't get any.
the Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, basically. Although hold on, that never worked though, right?
Well, no, yeah, he painted it, and then the Roadrunner just ran through it like it was normal, and then he'd run through it and he'd smash his face flat.
Yeah,
right?
You gotta love old cartoon logic, if you are able to like divorce it from the racism, then it's
why?
just all laugh. I mean, no, that's completely real. But there's a ridiculous level of just bullshit, create like imagination stuff in there, like just stuff that is really hard to think of. They were on some crack back. That's probably not even a lie. They probably were on crack.
Everyone was.
It's good for you. It's good for you.
Mm.
Anyway, next up is Ghost Ship's New Year's resolution. Get in your armchairs, guys. It's time to develop. Although I would say personally, what I would have like gone for this is something they kind of started doing already. It's pretty much just what the newsletter is what I wanted them to start doing, is like a more habitual thing, because it's something that they can do, and it kind of puts the game out there that they're working on without like it having to be some big reveal of something that's like finished or like ready to show. It's literally just like, because even if they don't show anything, they just talk about what is being currently worked on, and that's perfect for me. Feeling a little bit just more like in tune with what's happening, and sort of, I guess, also having that, because I don't have object permanence, having that monthly reminder that they are still working on something also works quite well. And to be honest, I don't know if I have the gall to tell them to do anything else.
Make season 6 and season 6 at the same time. Do it. I wouldn't even want that. I don't even want that. I genuinely, at this point in time, I don't give a shit about Deep Rock Galactic. It's a simple fact of the matter. I would much rather them just transfer over to Rogue Core permanently than have to go back. It's a simple fact of the matter for me. Like, I am kind of just done with that game. Because,
right, well, that's going to be fulfilled.
Yeah. But it's just, I don't know. The potential that game used to hold, in my eyes, is completely gone, right? Because it is. It's never going to be as much as I hoped it was. But Rogue Core's potential is so fucking there, and like transparently there as well, right? It's just,
yeah. It almost sounds like you said bare. You just meant
so transparently bare.
So bare, but obviously it's not, because it's a completely fresh deposit to mine, you might say.
It's like in the game Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah, well, I guess you've kind of just had to make like a translation of the potential that you perceive. It kind of has to be translated over now, I guess, because yeah, and that's I think that is actually a sort of bit more of a long-term thing, and this would actually be more appropriate to say in a year from now. Would be, I want them to either bite the bullet, and I know it's not very nice really. I want them to either bite the bullet and make season 6 the last one, or somehow prove that there's a reason why it shouldn't be, and I'm not entirely sure how they can do the second thing. I'm sure they can pull something out that's just as good as season 5, but I don't think that will. I'm not convinced that that's going to justify the time taken away from Rogue Core anymore. Like, I've no doubt they can do as good as they've done before, but it's such a different dynamic when you have another game that's going to need more attention, So if they can somehow provide some rationale, or some kind of, I guess, really, it's only going to come. That's the kind of proof it's only going to come from like practice, like from actually having the things happen. But it would be nice if they were able to somehow prove that it actually makes sense for them to still be working on Deep Rock, because I don't know if I can say that it does make sense. I'm good with it, right? Obviously, and a lot of people are, but that doesn't automatically mean it makes sense, because ideally Rogue Core will capture the entire audience plus of Deep Rock. So it's going to be hard for it to be. It's probably going to make even less sense for them to go back to Deep Rock after Rook's come out. In fact, that's not surprising, really, is it? That makes sense. It definitely would be that way. So, and that puts more oh no! Once again, the next season's got a lot of pressure on it. You can't fucking stop.
That's the most bravest thing in this video. A prediction that the next season's going to be even more important than the last. We've never said that one before.
No, never. That's a completely new revelation. Goodness me. All right, good stuff. Okay. Closed alpha. Well, actually, not yet. There's three stages to this, basically. To how we want road chords to go down, and the first one is what we want the build up to be like, I think. And I think if we want to be a bit more granular and not like get into like a weird minefield of trying to map out how they should market the game, because I don't think we should really do that. But what I think we should get into is, in a more simple sense, what the thing we want most to be kind of explained and showcased before it comes out, in a way. The thing that we want to be most on the table, like whether that's, every enemy in the game or something, because obviously that's a very tempting thing, but I probably wouldn't want to see every enemy in the game before the game comes out, or every weapon. But what I'm going to throw out there is probably wanting to have like what like the game systems are be pretty front and center, like meta progression specifically. And I imagine you're probably having similar desires to know about that stuff. Because I think that's where it's going to come from. That's where the hype's going to come from, aside from just all the new visual stuff to feast on, like weapons and enemies.
Yeah, no, it's all about builds. Deep Rock Galactic, the originator, it was the same thing. It was like making builds with weapons you like, and now it's going to be the same thing with Rogue Core. Although obviously a little less permanent, which is really the only downside of roguelikes, is that you can never really just have a build. You never own a build.
Scoffs at you.
Well, you and your 100 or so million levels, sure, but I don't know. Generally, you don't quite have. You can't just load into a game with the same build you always have and like in Deep Rock. That is a fact, right? Which is a shame. But within that, it does allow with a lot more combinations, right? And you will discover all of them in roguelikes and Rogue Core. That's how it works. That's why I'm looking forward to it.
And I would even say, actually, maybe what I want to know most about is actually what systems lie outside the meta progression, because I don't think this is going to be a difficult statement to back up in time. Is the fact that the minimum amount of playtime that Rogue Core will provide, and this is the bare minimum, will be however long it takes to max out. I can't imagine either of us aren't going to be striving for that, and that will happen because it's like with Deep Rock, it's kind of a different beast, and there's like sort of things like cosmetics and the random nature of things. With Rogue Core, it's a roguelike, so you're going to have this sort of meta progression system that's probably going to be like the main driving force of what you do. Is like the power creep. So I know that's going to fill out a lot of playtime, because those systems are always addictive, always, and this is that in a Deep Rock game. So I definitely want to know what we can sort of be looking at outside of those systems. So things like cosmetics and customization actually maybe is where my head's at. What other incentives are they going to go for or even bother with? I mean, customization's the easiest one, I suppose. It's just like, because that would probably let them hinge a little bit more on the system that they're used to, which is probably finding things like cargo crates in the caves and having, because if they are going to go down that path, I can imagine the system for unlocking cosmetics is probably not going to be too different. You know, given that obviously the system for getting upgrades and sort of increasing your like power as a player character is going to be very different. I feel like the customization isn't necessarily likely to be different either, like as well. It doesn't have to be different. The way things are unlocked, you know. I think I definitely want to see maybe like a deep dive into customization before the game comes out, and to see whether or not oh dear, that's not good. Hold on, I'm worried about it.
Well, it's fine. Yeah.
Did you guys see that? He disappeared. Yes.
I didn't. I totally didn't disappear.
Yeah, I want to see differences in the customization system. There you go.
Yeah.
I want to see signs of all of the things that they would sort of trap themselves with in Deep Rock kind of being overcome by it being a new game. And that's quite a long list. That could be an entire fucking episode, like genuinely. All the things that sort of tied down by and didn't really get around to fleshing out in the way that they ideally would have been. And I really want to sort of talk about maybe sometime in the future about how Roku is really their opportunity to overcome those things and not be tied down by them again.
For example, woman dwarfs.
Oh,
something that they had a pretty good excuse for. It was too late in development for them to like add them in realistically.
So this is actually something
doesn't hold up.
This is something that we talked about before.
Yes.
I don't think I'm wrong in saying this probably wouldn't affect your enjoyment of the game, would it? This isn't really about you, is that right?
No, but but I think
it's not about us.
It's a weird. It would be a weird thing where it's like, okay, so they were lying. But this is that's the simple fact of the matter is if ultimately they do that, they make this game and they still don't have female dwarves. It's like clearly there wasn't a technical debt or anything, like it would take a lot more effort than it's worth because of how late it is. It's just they didn't add them because that's what it is this time around. It's just not, there would be no excuse basically. But I think I remember because we brought this up because thingy they said something like that. Like they got asked in a dev stream and they were a bit and ah about it.
Yeah, and that's because like with God, maybe this could be another thing. Maybe I want them to shed these sort of weird like self-imposed things because it's like they do have an idea of what that would look like, and their vision for female dwarves involves a completely different voice, right? And that's actually the biggest thing. That's actually the biggest stumbling block, right? Because of the payment involved in having a different voice actor.
Well, they have,
not that the guy isn't like already working at the company, because he is, but he's still paid as a voice actor.
Working there.
Well, that's what but it would still be
if they want to keep it in company.
Yeah, but it would still be paid. And obviously, there are talent concerns. We don't know that they haven't already tried them all. They might have done.
Yeah.
They might have put them all in the booth and realised that none of them work. And then I would and then there is that genuinely, I think, fair conundrum. I still believe, by the way, that they don't have a good excuse for not getting this in the game. But there is the very fair conundrum of compromising what they would want to do and just making it like not having the voice be different, or like things like that. That very weird like sort of compromise where it's just like you could almost boil it down to like a switch, like a toggle or a slider with two options, and the differences are extremely minor. It's literally, you would literally just like put a tiny bit more accentuation on like the breasts, I guess. Well, no, that's how you would do it because you need if it's,
Well, yeah, or even then, just the voices alone, right? Like, just add female voices, and it's like, the dwarfs don't look different. But they said themselves they don't want to do that, right? They don't want to. Well, they didn't want to cop out by saying that there already is female dwarfs. You just can't tell, right? They didn't want to do that, so it's then like, I don't know. It's just, I guess that's a wish list or a thingy for them, I think.
Well, obviously, there's the ultimate route, which is make the dwarves sex neutral, basically.
Yeah,
they are a masculine
that,
race, but there's something going on. I mean, they don't have nipples, and they also don't have body hair. They also don't... So what's that all about?
Yeah.
I've got to wonder. I mean, obviously, we know they don't have nipples because they were suckled on a teat of stone, but that's neither here nor there. So I could honestly say maybe that's that should be a Below Decks article for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff I want. That was always the desire for Below Decks, was long form question answering, essentially, right? That you gauge what does the public want to hear about, and then it writes it up, right? Like I don't know, a full thing about why the an ocean biome is never going to fucking exist.
Yeah, although I don't think that should be that hard for people to understand. Apparently,
no,
it is.
But they clearly don't. So something like that on those lines.
Yeah, it's like, why the fuck do you want a water level? We got an escort mission, right? And they didn't, do the full turnaround on that. I guess they did like a good enough job in the sense of like they managed to put an escort mission in a game where you kind of the gameplay loop will result in you ending up having played probably hundreds of those, and it didn't destroy the game, right? Maybe it ruined it for some, but it still didn't turn out as good as it should have done, right? And that's because they chose to do it at all. And an escort and a water level is the same thing. It's the same thing, and when they tried to do the escort one, I don't think it panned out really overall, and I don't think a water level would either. And also, it's just like it's obvious, isn't it? It's just like it's either going to be a concept that's just another normal biome, which is first of all is what it should be, and we've also got 3 of those already, right? Or it's a completely it's a biome that functions entirely differently, which just doesn't make sense. So come off it. You lot, come off it.
Yeah.
Would it make more sense for gravity to get stronger the closer you get to a planet's core, or is that bullshit?
I think that might be exactly how that works.
So the closer we get to the core of Oxys,
because the pressure underwater works that way, right? Like,
I don't know.
It's kind of, yeah. Well, you should. You know that the deeper you go in water, the more pressure there is.
Oh well,
right?
Yeah. Sorry, of course yeah. Well, we all know that, don't we now?
I mean, that's probably how was that last year
a bit
or
contemporary. I think it was in 2024. I think. Let's find out. Titan submersible implosion. Oh shit! It was June 2023.
Yeah.
Holy shit! It was like literally when season 4 came out. Fuck off with that.
That's a glimpse into Harry's mind. That's not even because we're on a Deep Rock stream. That's literally how he remembers time and dates. And
no, that is actually how I track the passing of time.
Yeah, which is why, God forbid, you're gonna lose. You probably already lost a hard track, right? Like this year is not gonna be like dated in your mind. You will forget that 2025 even exists. Actually, I guess the launch of if the launch of Road Core occurs this year, you're all right. But if there's no recognizable landmark Deep Rock related in this year, that's tough.
Yeah. All right. Closed alpha and how we want it to go down. First of all,
yeah.
Well, Easy one there. Knock that out. But obviously there is a methodology, and I've only caught on the Caught. That's a new word. I've only caught the barest glimpse of like them mentioning it and how it might end up working, and they suggested that well, first of all, they don't know yet, which is not that's part of the course. But also, one of the options is to keep it fairly internal and mainly base it off of people who they've had playtest it before. Obviously, at least one of us harbours a bit of a burning desire to get their grubby little hands on this thing as early as possible.
Get my hands on it and get a say in it as well would be double the. Yeah, because I'm not sure how closed alpha works, but isn't that the point, right? That there's like, you listen to the people that play it, and yeah, I'd fucking love that.
Well, then that really that depends on the scope, I suppose, of it, and whether or not it's something that people can sign up for.
Yeah,
that kind of thing, and I think that would be good because based on sort of what I just said, I mean, I don't know exactly how the Deep Rock closed alpha was carried out, but from the sounds of things, it definitely wasn't open in that way. Obviously, it's not open, but I don't think it was something you could sign up for, or if it was very limited. I think Ghost Ship will benefit a lot from being as inclusionary as possible as far as like numbers go. So I don't know what the normal numbers are, but if I were to take a shot in the dark and say something that doesn't sound crazy, I guess maybe around 5,000. I don't know if 10,000's like considered high or not. So maybe 5 to 10,000. I'm not sure. Maybe 10,000's high. I don't know. But those sound like good numbers.
Yeah, I think it might just be however many people are paying attention to that closely to find it, right? Like, I'm not sure if they're going to make a huge announcement. They might, but
yeah. Well, that's actually important to talk about though, because that closed alpha is pretty. It's propped up and punctuated in like the roadmaps as like one of the stages of the year, as far as like 2025 goes, right? It's like Q2 Rogue Core closed alpha, and it's like a big deal. So then it's like, okay, then how public is it actually going to be when the time comes? Will the average person hear about it? Will it have a fair amount of news and reveals associated with it? Or will it be pretty, like, as closed makes it sound?
Yeah.
I would say when you put it on the roadmap, you kind of are indicating that it's not going to be, like, some, like, behind closed doors classified operation so much.
Yeah, it sounds like something they're still willing to, like, invite the public in on, right? Like,
yeah. And so, however limited it is, something that I think would be a very good sort of thing to lead into with the closed alpha is like basically a report on it, like quite literally in what was like the most feedback that was given and the areas, and then possibly give like I don't know, maybe it's time to bring back some kind of actual voting. Maybe, put out there all of the things that were sort of flagged by the community during the alpha, and then be like, which of these is the top priority for everyone else? Although that could potentially not make sense, because obviously, if like they put out all the issues and have people vote on them, and then we end up voting for like the one that was actually the least commented on by the people who played the alpha, then you might be in trouble. But certainly some kind of like expose, and that sounds like a bad word actually, but like an expose on like what the most talked about subjects were, and basically what they're going to be working on that's in response to that feedback. That's definitely something that should be out there in probably a bit more than just a newsletter as well. I'm not sure what format it would take, but that would be a cool thing to see post the closed alpha. And then I guess that sort of brings us to the big one.
The big one?
Yeah.
What, the main game?
The big November the November of Doom.
Oh.
November. I mean, I'm assuming November, You know, I think that is like pretty.
They don't want to leave
set.
it as late as December, but it probably won't be as early as they can because I doubt they do that.
It's very
well.
rare.
So it's normally in the middle of the allotted times.
Normally in the middle of the quarter. So I guess state of the game is like the most important thing. And that's like technical and things like that, and sort of visuals, and maybe even because I think a lot of people recall, maybe, or I hope a lot of people recall, who played during this time, how much of like how well you could use the space rig from like 2018 to as evidence that the game was in early access, right? The amount of things that were clearly not finished or not fully done, or not realized in the way that they probably would be later on. Not even just like the unfinished areas that would get like cut, like the shooting range or something. And there won't be one of those in Rogue Core, but things like the deep dive terminal in its very original form, looking exactly the same as any of the other shitty little computers, and the fact that now most of those computers have completely disappeared and be turned into completely different looking terminals. And I think what we've seen already from the Ramrod, I can imagine it being a lot more finished than the space rig was on launch. And I can imagine that also being a bit emblematic of the whole thing. I think the biggest thing for me will be Rogue Core feeling like the vision of the game is more there on its early access launch than it was for Deep Rock's. And that's because I feel like the vision for Deep Rock probably wasn't fully formed when it first came out. But I think Rogue Core is a very different case. And I want to see that bleed into what's actually there on launch, and how much of a sort of not literally a finished game, but how much of a sort of realized vision of the game that it is on launch. I hope it's closer to what they have in their heads, or more so something that they had in their heads than on launch. Because yeah, I do think Deep Rock's vision was not like, I think it sort of outgrew itself in a way, or it's like scope.
Over time.
And for Rogue Core, should be something that is
should have
much more defined.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see evidence of. And then obviously on top of that, relative technical perfection, let's say. Relative. That's where my head's at on how I want sort of the launch to go. Or what I want it to look like on launch. There's also how we want the launch to go. That's a different thing, isn't it? How it goes down, in relation to the community and the player base. And that's probably not hard to sort of agree on how we want that to go. And I could be a chump and say, I hope it goes well. But it being positively received is really it's important. It obviously, I know that sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds so trivial, but it's so important.
I mean, let's be honest, there is a chance it could blow up, right? Like a Helldivers kind of thing, like, because it has Deep Rock behind it, right, out the gate, right? It has a game that is very well renowned, and all that shape or form. And the only problem is that it's a roguelike. But roguelikes have blown up before, and this is really, realistically, the first, like, not the first, but a co-op roguelike. It is out the gate, everyone knows that it is, and that's the point of it, right? Like, a roguelike to be fun with your friends isn't as common a thing as I think people think, right? Like, I know there's like a couple, but generally roguelikes are more solo, at least the most popular ones, like Hades and that, right?
Yeah.
So I think if everything comes together the right way, if news covers it like well enough, like if it's popular, general zeitgeist, if big content creators get on it, I mean, Zanny is probably like the biggest one that likes Deep Rock. I'm not sure if he still does stuff on it, but yeah, like if I don't know, actual content creators that people recognize and know give it a try, you could see it boom right out the gate.
Yeah,
and
and
I
that's
do
and
think
the
it
thing
has
is,
that in it.
if we want to put that as down as like a proper like almost like a wish for how it could go, we need to sort of also compare that to Deep Rock in relation to those things, because obviously Deep Rock had pretty much nothing but positivity going for it ever since it came out, but it did not explode on early access.
And even at the
it
Oscars,
exploded
who was
later.
really big back then.
Yeah. The Oscars obviously did a lot, but as like one of the initial like boosts, but it didn't explode into videos by these massive YouTubers that would get millions of views until really season started, right? Really, or at least 1.0, and that I think, obviously that has a lot to do with growth, right? But that is, when you think about it, that's actually, while that is growth of the game, the growth of the game is the same as the growth of the IP. Rocore is Deep Rock Galactic. It's got, the name Deep Rock Galactic is first. It's before Rocore. And it's also, and based on my sort of main wish, it's going to be a much more finished and clearer vision of a game on launch as well. Which means I don't think this expectation it's not insane. I'll say that much. It doesn't mean it will happen though, because and I think it does depend on what the game like looks like. And I just think, but the thing is, already from what we've seen though, right? And this isn't placeholders anymore. We're not basing this off of prototype images anymore. What we've seen already looks fairly fleshed out, Like it does.
Yeah,
like
the visuals, like areas where
the visuals of the areas and like the biome or the main core biome.
They focused on
and,
is like as done as you could expect it to be, right? Like at least it looks it, right? Like I think that's kind of how they're going at it. Some areas they haven't touched, and that is very transparent. Other areas already very well refined, and it's just kind of a matter of like once they've gone through everything, I guess that's when they're going to launch it, and everything there is going to be refined and of substance, and
Well, and like the visual direction is so much clearer because it's really just Deep Rock, but with a different tone. Not really with a different look, but with a different tone that will influence the designs of certain things. And that means the chances of it being a better looking game, and I'm not talking about graphics really, but it being a better looking game will make it much easier, I think, for sort of like bigger content creators to use it. Really, I don't think that does make sense. Right? I'm not like that is something they consider. I feel like I don't think big content creators necessarily want to play like quite. I don't think they want to play unfinished looking games. Really, I don't know if that's a fair generalization.
Not looking. I think they're willing to play betas and stuff like that. Often I see a bunch of those, but yeah, not like a game that looks half baked. No, not really. I don't think at least.
So the game's sort of basically taking advantage of or also just being carried by the fact that this IP has a lot behind it and has gone through an explosion already. Will hopefully benefit it a lot and see a much bigger launch than Deep Rock had in early access. So all in all, I think that culminates in like the idea of Rocore launching in a way that is very different to how Deep Rock launched in early access. Deep Rock launched in early access in a pretty buggy and definitely not completed state look-wise either. The actual overall visual direction was still there. I think certainly the biomes didn't change very much. The actual sort of look of the environment. So, and that's been carried through all the way to now, really. But I think growth is actually something to think about, and whether or not Rocore is going to start at its whether or not Rocore is going to start at its bottom, if you'll pardon the word, and grow, or if it's going to start at its peak and sort of just like stabilize, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of ask the question to us both of what we think is actually more healthy, as well.
Seems like generally most games don't thrive long term when they get a huge thing, right? Or at least some, right? Like Among Us, Fall Guys, the one with a bunch of orange men in deadly space.
Do you know
Lethal Company.
Henry Stickmin?
Yeah, I know of Henry Stickmin.
And you know that it's the same developer for Among Us.
I did not know that.
I found this out
sense.
recently. No, it does. It does actually make sense. It does make sense. They look the same.
Yeah, they look very. What's the website called?
Newgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they yeah, absolutely. That was a cool thing to find out. As in, it wasn't bad. I wasn't like, oh no, oh they've fallen so far, because they haven't.
No, the game is very fun. But yeah, it wore itself in fairly quickly. Like they added tons of content, but they just couldn't keep up. And it's why I don't know. But also, still though, those games do have a strong, stable player base after the math, right?
After the math, you just combine aftermath and after the fact.
Yeah,
we're making new words today.
I always do. But yeah, no. After it still has more players than you would really have expected. Like a game that isn't inherently the biggest game in the world would have, and it still consistently has that. The problem is you're going to have to go through a wave of the players that were never really going to be in it for the long haul, bitching and moaning in your ear about it the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
and then you get this thing problem. Like let's say Roku has like a fucking massive launch, right? Let's say even like a million would be actually a million would be shitloads. Hold on a second, because like Marvel Rivals' peak is only like 500k. But let's say like Rocore gets the kind of numbers that match Deep Rock's peak within like the first month, or some kind of explosion similar to that, or even greater, right? Just based on this resurgence of the franchise, and also bringing in like new people from every like sort of corner, maybe even like new people who have like heard of Deep Rock because of like it's now like meme culture presence, but never like bothered to play it, but it's like a new game. So you could end up having this massive launch, and then what happens when we cross over into 2026 and they have to wait 6 months for new content because we're working on a different game,
exactly. That is my biggest problem and concern with both games in the long run. Like they will be damaging each other constantly more than thriving, unless they split the team and have a team big enough to have a reasonable size in both. Like
the worry I have about that is I genuinely, with the way that with the approach that they seem to be taking, right, with seasons, I honestly am not sure they see the point in not going all in on Deep Rock when they touch Deep Rock at all. But I wouldn't want the B team to be on Rocore, So it's like that's a bit weird. So this is something that just as far as like planning and rationale goes, I would probably like to see be like kind of cleared up in some way before the end of the year. Whether that's through a roadmap that makes things more like just clear in general, and it's like
they're not a company where we can confidently say that they have thought this through.
Yeah,
they almost pride themselves on the fact that they kind of don't. Like they kind of just one step at a time kind of people.
Yeah, and they haven't truly been damaged enough. They haven't been damaged enough to sort of shake it off either. And the problem with that is that makes me feel like the only way for them to realize that there's probably a better way of doing things is for them to fail. And we believe it or not, we actually don't want that. We actually want them to succeed.
Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, quite a bit. But we also think I think this is, I think I am speaking for us both fairly when we say we probably do want them to plan things a bit more.
Or
But
at least just not run into stuff that, I mean, we have no idea what we're talking about, and we think we can see this coming. Like, if this does occur, then it's going to be embarrassing for everyone involved, right? If we're wrong, then, well, here's a fucking surprise. Us who have no idea what we're talking about are wrong, but from the outside, it looks like they're running towards a problem where they're just not going to be able to make content for either games quick enough, and both will suffer. Like, that's just what it looks like.
And
Like,
and look, we got the Ghost Ship roadmap for this year during the last On the Horizon stream, and that means that is something that we will get probably this year as well for 2026. And I know it's kind of a weird thing to talk about, but that is still something that will happen this year. And I want that roadmap to be a, it's cool that they've got all these games that they're publishing and all that, but I want the next sort of big roadmap that they put out to be a Deep Rock and Rogue Core roadmap, and for it to make sense and be like promising for both games, and more specifically for Rogue Core in terms of, I can see how this actually does make sense. Maybe that will hinge on what kind of things are present at Rogue Core's launch that will actually be able to carry itself for that amount of time. Maybe that will involve a B team that will put out an update, maybe even a couple updates during Season 6's development. I don't know, but that's something that needs to be cleared up, and that's kind of separate from Rogue Core's launch as well, isn't it? That's like a separate concern, because that concern will still be there even if Rogue Core launches well.
you don't want a B team and an A team that are constantly switching games. You want teams that know the game that they're working on back to front and can continue to do so. You don't want teams that are constantly like having to change what they're doing like every couple months, right? Because they're being reassigned to the other team or stuff. You want a Rogue Core team and a Deep Rock team who are experts in those games. Like, sure, you could have people who are good at both, and they probably would be. They'll be fine. But like, I don't know. No other company, well, things do that, I assume. And like, just like have a team that's works on a game. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and obviously, there isn't this automatic expectation for regular updates when a finished game comes out inherently. There is now, because that's kind of like the expectation of the industry. But you got to think about when you. I know that they're not inherently planning on Rogue Core being a live service game, and I think that's fine. I don't think it inherently has to be, and I also think that's a discussion we'll have at some point. That might actually be the next episode. Who knows? But I will say, an early access game is kind of automatically live service, at least until it goes 1.0. You know?
Yeah.
Because you are claiming that the game isn't finished while it's out.
Yeah. That you have to continue updating it. That's like the agreement of people purchasing it.
And that means that going
continue working on it
6 months without doing anything to it doesn't make any sense. And we're not saying that's exactly what they're going to do, but it's not unreasonable based on what we know to say that is how the cookie is going to crumble, because we know Season 5, obviously, that you could call that quite a quick turnaround, and I would, but they also had quite a bit of that stuff kind of in the works already. It's not actually that crazy to say a season could take up to anywhere from 4 to 6 months from scratch, because we know that we know that Season 6 will be from scratch as well. Nothing prior really going into it.
Probably only a biome rough idea. That's about it.
Yeah, only like ideas. Like, if there are biomes, it's only ideas for biomes are the only thing that's going to be sort of there as a starting point, and that's just probably just concept art,
Yeah, and if they are going to tackle what we really hope they do, the perk rework, that seems like it's such a daunting task that they've been putting it off for the entire lifespan of this game. So like, I don't know what magic they intend to like pull, but it's concerning.
Yeah, it's just reasonable to think that Season 6 won't be a quick turnaround, and so that's why I don't think our concerns are crazy. It's just like, I don't think that's going to be something they get out in like March or something. That's not if they did somehow, that would obviously be. I think that would actually work out for everyone. And that's why also I would at very least expect like technical like constant technical like patches to be rolled out for Rogue Core during that time at least. That stuff is at least being monitored, and that's not really a B team thing either. That's kind of like the top of the line sort of guys observing the issues, and then I guess got sort of like pulling someone away quickly to like fix a bug and then pump that out in like a week or something. I don't know. I think that also has to be done. It is going to be a weird thing, even if 2026 is like jam packed, which obviously it kind of will be by force. Part of that is also whether or not how jam packed it is, and the way in which it's going to be packed will impact Rogue Core or not, and that like a massive launch could end up not actually being necessarily the best way to go. And I'll say I don't need Rogue Core to explode on launch for me to be confident in it. By the way, I don't necessarily need that. I would be happy for it to start like a very modest level of success, and then once again grow. And I definitely don't want it to explode while they're making season 6. Definitely, because that would be really awkward. But I don't need like it to be the most popular game in the world for me to be happy with it either. Certainly not.
Sure, but I really hope that it is both as good as we think it's going to be and deserves the amount of players it then is, which I think, considering we hope it's going to be one of the games, right, of like ever.
This is definitely one of the games of all time.
Yeah, I do hope that it has the players that represent that. I don't know. It's concerning, but in a good way. It's something to look forward to, truly look forward to, and not like fear. Inherently.
I am definitely excited for what the game will be, but there are things that sort of surround that, and not necessarily before, because we've kind of established, the year is kind of written off in a bit of a way. So, as exciting as the time might be after Rogue Core comes out, there are aspects to it that aren't like automatically best case scenario. So we're to keep an eye on that. But I think there definitely is an excitement that's ready to sort of flourish as the year goes on. I genuinely hope they're able to really create the sense that we're built. Like I don't actually want it to be I don't want them to blow their load early either in the year. And I also don't want it to be like a complete surprise when the game comes out. I don't want it to feel like it wasn't marketed. I want them to somehow be able to achieve a pretty like steady curve where we get some stuff earlier on in the year, but there's like it basically feels like we're boiling. Literally, as soon as summer ends, it feels like we're boiling up to it, basically. Something like that. Like maybe they show some stuff before summer, and then as soon as summer's over, drop like the official trailer, and then it's just a fucking ride to the finish line, basically. On a motorbike made of fire. Right now, let's just cycle past some nice looking fields. Hopefully that's how it hopefully that's how it goes. Hopefully, the sort of quite stagnant feelings are not quickly dispelled, but they are assuredly dispelled. You know what I mean? Like slow but steady build to definitively be excited for this thing that looks amazing. That would be the ideal. I think now we could turn our attention to our most loyal fan.
Yeah.
It's somehow not Box Fox Scoot. So Mr. Cheese, I don't know why you're not a member. No, that's not right. That's not right.
Mr. Cheese is an honorary member.
Mr. Cheese is absolutely an honorary member. Thank you so much. Mr. Cheese writes in and has got something to say on both sides of the fence. For Rocore, I'm hoping we'll be able to play it. Other than that, though, I'm happy with anything. Right on the money,
Wise
Mr.
words.
Cheese. Wise words indeed. Obviously, I'm not going to expound on that sentiment because we have really went through it. I mean, and obviously, we kind of established that it's not a trivial sentiment, the idea of just wanting to play the game, but we have definitely ran that into the ground. However, they also say for DRG, it would be cool to perhaps see a few more of those minor patches that had some notable changes. But the one we got during Oktoberfest for the reworked Nero Lasso, that was really cool, and I hope it wasn't a one-time thing. Me personally, that couldn't better represent how I'm feeling. We know that the game's not going to get any major updates. That also means there's a very low chance, potentially zero chance, that there's even like any kind of named update, right? Like a maintenance update. But there will always be patches for Deep Rock, and they were able to trickle, like sort of bleed through a couple changes that actually did have some impact. And given that Anders and Mike have talked about certain changes they want to make to the Season 5 overclocks, I know that I want to see that. And I also know that the way that it's been done in sort of the patches, very, very sort of drip feed style, I know that's not impacting Roadcore, you know? So I want to see more of that, but obviously not in like a big dump either. So, you know, maybe the next one, that burst fire change gets through. Obviously, I guess there is a strong implication that would impact Roadcore, given that Anders is like struggling to tear a programmer away to get it done. But you know, those are still the things that I want to see from Deep Rock, because those are the kind of things that have already happened a couple times for Deep Rock since Roadcore's been in full development. So I definitely want that to be a recurring thing, because it seems like it's something they're capable of doing. And that works for me as someone who's kind of just playing the game for that kind of thing anyway. Because that's like the Overclock showcases are kind of like the backbone of me still playing Deep Rock. So I'll appreciate it. And that will always result in sort of videos where we test out balance changes and stuff as well. So, you know, it benefits everyone. It benefits everyone. And I think that might be it.
Wow. Short but sweet.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense for podcasts when we have either sort of dried up on sort of new Roadcore news to chew through. Those kind of episodes, they probably are going to be in the short and sweet side. And also, I will say one thing, and I definitely talked about this because I did put in a little addendum at the beginning of the New Year special. I talked about how I think one of the videos I want to see the most this year for us to do is those sort of like analysis of like footage and screenshots and stuff that we did, where I was like in like the slideshow and I was able to draw on it, and we can sort of just speculate. And I think you know, given what the kind of year we're supposed to be in for, they should be fairly common. They should be. Or at least there definitely should be a few, because that's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to go on this year anyway, is going to be more sort of Roadcore reveals. And look, the next one, there's a chance the next one is next week, by the way. Because they're doing one of the dev streams is supposed to be like a Q&A where they're going to bring on either Mike or Mikkel, and they might show some footage. So if they do, we'll be sure to cover it, because I think that's actually a really good format for us to cover it in as well. Especially because it's stuff that isn't inherently like news, if you know what I mean, but it still like reveals that sort of get both of our gears turning. Unlike like, you know, the announcement of the Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
Which isn't like reaching the top of Tyler's priorities. I think he's more concerned with getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I like the hat. We've already seen the hat.
We have already seen the hat, haven't we?
Probably gonna get that hat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't even got all the hats anymore. like I missed out on. I think the Shark one, the one after.
Oh, who cares about the Shark? And I don't even remember what the Oktoberfest one was.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I think that is it then. So I think it's time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Tyler.
Bye, Reginald.
And of course, if you enjoyed this episode of the Bad Origin Podcast, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to stay on top of everything to do with Deep Rock and Brocore, then make sure to click that bell as well. And as always, thank you to our one and only member, one Boxbox Scoot. I'm just going to check. I'm going to quickly check. I'm like 99% sure that it's still just the way. Yeah, okay, cool. It's almost a tradition at this point, you know? The one and only member. Yeah. But we appreciate him nonetheless. And we appreciate all of you. And one thing, because, you know, I don't think it's that crazy to say, the channel subscriber count is probably stabilized to an extent. Obviously, we are expecting buzz as far as the Deep Rock community goes. But if I were to say one thing, 1,500 would be 1.5k would be awesome.
Is that our goal for the year?
I think so. I don't think we can aim higher. I don't think.
All right.
I think we'd be foolish to aim higher.
We can do that.
But I think with
especially with your high effort videos, Harry.
I'll be real. If that doesn't do well, I will be crushed. I'll be honest. I really want that to do well.
Make sure you do everything important then. Make sure you.
I'll share it to the Reddit, by the way, because I asked people for feedback anyway, and I said it would be used in a video, and so I'm gonna be like, here's that thing I asked about like 2 months ago. It's gonna be like the bat that everyone signed. And it's like, oh, so that's what that was for.
Yeah.
You know, the bat signed by everyone on Earth. So, oh yeah, I remember that. It's just like, so yeah, and well, I'm pretty confident I'm not going to see you on Tuesday. I've no way I'm getting that video out next week, especially with an assignment deadline coming up. It's just not feasible.
Always a busy boy.
But maybe the week after. But obviously, we'll see you again next Saturday. For something, hopefully something exciting. If not, I've got an idea. Either way, we'll see you soon, and it's good to be back. All right, goodbye, everyone. Say goodbye again.
Bye.
Say goodbye again.
Goodbye again.
Yeah. We are in tune sometimes.
Do 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 do.
Goodbye.